crochet friends, it's me, Jonah, and welcome back to another crochet show and tell. Today's show and tell is all about this comfy Earflaps hat from Red Heart. I made my hat using this beautiful Karen Cakes colorway. It's called Spice Cake, and I love this colorway because of the beautiful orange tones and the bright red and then that lighter red undertone. And a few years back, I used this shade of Spice Cakes to make what I like to call my sunset Afghan. And it was a beautiful Afghan with a natural striping effect, and the same effect happened in the hat. And if I put it on, you can see it's a really dense and nice fabric from all your post stitches. And this is what your ear flaps look like. And then of course, you gotta have your strands or your ties right here, which are just traditional French braids. And then you make them by working strands of fringe. And then you take several adjacent strands of fringe and then hold them in groups and then work your French braid and then tie it off and you create a little tassel. And I just think it's the most practical and functional way to make a hat of this style. And then the back is worked in the same way, but you can see you also have these beautiful rows of texture going all the way around. And it's finished off with a fun little pom-pom. But you'll also need, of course, your crochet hook, a 4mm or whatever size matches gauge, a pair of scissors, and something that's optional, but in my opinion is very helpful with this kind of hat, especially with beginner to relatively new crocheters, is stitch markers or just scraps of yarn that are a contrasting color to the colors of yarn that are in whatever cake or solid color yarn you're going to use for your ear-flapped hat. And what I'm going to show you is how to start off, because that is a fundamental part or the foundation of your crochet hat. I'm also going to show you how to start off your ear flaps here. I'm going to show you how to mark where you're going and how to keep track of your rounds in your hat and how to do your French braid right here for your hat as well. So let's get started. Before I begin, I did want to point out that if you feel the need at any point throughout the video, just remember you can rewind, or if that's not sufficient, you can change the playback speed to either speed up the video or slow down the video. And I'm going to begin by starting and showing you the first few rows of the hat. And I'm going to do that so that I can later on show you how it forms the ridges. And then I'm going to put the stitch markers in where the front post double crochets are going to be formed. Not the ones where the blocks are going to be formed. The ones where the singular strands are going to be formed that are going to go up, that are going to divide the big blocks like this of double crochets that go around. I'll pull out the actual hat so I can show you. I'm going to put markers in each of these so I can keep track of where these will go. And that'll make the actual marking of my hat so much easier. But for now, we have to start all the way up here. So you have to take our yarn and our crochet hook and start by making a slip knot. Then you chain 4, so yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through, and then you're going to join with a slip stitch in the first chain to form a ring. So that means just insert into this first chain from the hook, and then that, and then pull through both loops with the yarn over, and that creates a slip stitch. And then you're going to chain up 3 like you would, and then you're going to proceed to work 11 double crochets into this ring. And as a refresher, a double crochet is a yarn over, open up the ring, go right down the center, pull up a loop, and pull through once, pull through two. Insert, pull up, and then for our double crochet, we pull through once and twice. And that's number 3 out of our 11 that we've done. But keep in mind that the first chain 3 does count as a stitch. So since you're counting your double crochets as you go along, if you need to, you can count that extra chain 3 as 1. Or if you're one of the crocheters that like to modify patterns to work a chain 2 and then not count it as a double crochet, you would have to then chain 2 and then work 12 double crochets. Which I like to sometimes do. It depends on whether I'm working post stitches, but this pattern will have you do that eventually. Let's see how many we have now. So we're going to count this chain 3 now as one of our stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I'm going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. Close up the back of the ring. I'll set it down. Pull off a little more yarn. Zoom in. And I'll give you a moment to compare. If yours looks just like this, we're set to go. And if it doesn't, rewatch and go again. It's just a chain 4 ring, chain 3, 11 double crochets, slip stitch to the first chain 3. Next, we're going to proceed to chain 3. And then we're going to double crochet into the next stitch. My bad. We're going to chain 3, and then we're going to double crochet into the first stitch. And then we're going to work a double crochet into the next stitch. And then work another double crochet into that same stitch. So what we just did is we just increased both of these stitches. You see, in this stitch we just did, we put 2 double crochets into that stitch. And then in the stitch before that, we put a double crochet as well as a chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. So the next stitch, we're going to put another double crochet as well as another double crochet. So just continue placing 2 double crochets in each stitch around. And if you'd like, you can stop about halfway and count your stitches. You can just like make sure and look and see. I have 2 stitches in each of them so far, yep. And keep going, or you could just do it all at the end of the row. Or if you can just kind of feel your stitches, you know when you accidentally pulled through and didn't finish that stitch right, and you can just tell. So now we're in our last stitch and we're going to finish working our double crochets. And so this is just dividing it up and getting it ready so that it can be worked in the number that it needs to be divided into. And eventually you'll notice in this pattern that it's going to start getting divided into certain groups. whether that's in eighths or whatever number it's divided into. And I believe it's in the groups of 8. So the next row will be chaining up 3, a double crochet into the next stitch under both loops. And now it's time for our first post stitch in the pattern. So I'm going to pull off some more yarn. And then I'm going to yarn over my hook and go around to the back, out to the front. And now this post stitch is over like the front of my hook. That's why it's a front post, because the post is over the front of your hook. And then I'm going to yarn over my hook and pull up and finish my double crochet. But I have to work 2, so I'll do the same thing again. And now I'm going to double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to work 2 front posts. And then a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And you can already see how this is going to start to create the front post pattern. And then you're going to continue that all the way around. So the 2 front posts go onto 1 stitch, and then the next 2 stitches each have 1 double crochet. In these first few rows, you don't need to use stitch markers at all for anything. But once you get to the larger rows after that, especially the increased rows, is where you might want to. Especially for the different sizes and all that, because that's when you're following the pattern and you don't want to get lost and make any different mistakes or anything of that sort. Okay, so for the last stitch, it's going to be 2 front post double crochets, followed by a slip stitch join to the top of the chain 3. Round 4 is going to be a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to be a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And that's what it looks like so far. Once you've joined and started to work on round 4. I wanted to join it first and start to work on round 4 before I showed you, so that you could see and make sure you had everything right and lined up. Because you can see, if you don't have things lined up properly, this hat will not work out right. Because things will be completely offset and it won't work. And then in the next stitch, we have to work 2 front post double crochets, which we already know how to do. And then we have to put a double crochet in the next 3 stitches. And then work 2 front post double crochets into the next stitch, and then 1, 2, 3, and another thing is, when they made their pattern, or Red Heart made their pattern, they used one of the yarns. It's a yarn that some crocheters or knitters might be familiar with, and it's Boutique Unforgettable. It has kind of a shiny appearance. It has a quite a bit of sheen. There's some yarns like it where they have lots of color fading and ombres, and they have a wool-like appearance, and sometimes they go from thick to thin, and those yarns traditionally look very beautiful when used with these kind of stitches and in this type of hat too. I just wanted to try out something different, and I think that this result was beautiful, if not better, than all of them. But for my next hat, because whenever I make a project, I always like to try out different types of yarns and techniques. I'm going to try out using one of those types of wools, and I'm thinking I should make it with neutrals, but I should make it with like browns and creams and different shades of browns, because you can never go wrong with that. But I just want to see how different it would look in contrast to this red and yellow, and because I think this one really matches like the fall leaves. And that's the best thing about being a crafter. You can always make your item however you'd like it. Completely customizable to your liking. And then the last stitch, of course, is a front post double crochet 2 times. You lay it down again. And there's an up close of rounds 1 through 4. Now that you've seen what that looks like, I'm going to take out the actual hat itself. Zoom out a little bit more here so you can see the full thing. And if I were to start taking out some stitch markers and just setting them over to the side here, because I'll need them in a moment, I'm going to take out some colors that are contrasting. Let's see, this one's kind of pushing it in some areas, like especially over here. So I don't think I'll use that one. So what I want to do is, let's say I was working around, and actually I should have the hat facing this way, because I would be working the hat this way, because I'm crocheting along like this. And you can already see the stitches are, as a crocheter, this makes more sense, because you work the hat from here to here. I'll line it up perfectly for you, so you can line up your own work and start marking some things as well. So the first thing I want to point out is how each of these are sectioned off. So when you have it marked, you have them marked in these groups of 2. And then they start to branch off in 1. So I'm going to mark the first spot right here, just for now, where it's just alone. Because all of these stitches up until this point, you see how it's in these groups of 2? Like we were doing over there? That's because it had to continue to expand your hat and work the crown to gain more stitches so it would fit the circumference of whoever's head you're making it for. And then down here, it didn't have to, so it could actually fit into the pattern. And at this point, we wanted to start creating that stitch pattern, which was creating a double crochet, front post double crochet, and then several front post double crochet. And then that is where you continue that down to here. And then you can see you split here and you increase at each of these slots, and then you keep going down, and then at the bottom I added a round of single crochet just to make everything even fit better, just to kind of close it all up and make it a clean cut across the bottom. And then another thing I wanted to point out is how each of these sections are divided. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yes, like I said earlier, remember I was saying there was 8 different sections? There are 8. So, if I take these off, what I was wanting you to do, and I'm going to show you how to do that now, is as you're going, put stitch markers in on the important parts of your project. So if I'm going to be working here, whenever I hit this part right here, these peaks, I'm going to place a stitch marker in these peaks. And right now, it seems a little bit ridiculous, and like you don't need this many stitch markers in there. But once you get to the larger part of your hat, these will be placed farther apart, as you can see how that spreads out. And you might not even want to put them in right now, because of just how close up they would be, naturally. And the next thing I'm going to show you is how to work the ear flaps. So I'm going to set this aside and pull out the actual hat again. So, for the ear flaps, they are just worked in front post double crochet entirely. So let's begin to do those. So I'm going to set this aside and pull off some more yarn. And then I'm just going to make a slip knot, because I'm not just going to work it onto like that smaller portion I made. And I'm just going to like pretend work it onto a chain. But you'd be working it on to your actual hat, because it's worked on this way. So I'm going to chain 1 after making my slip knot. And then I'm going to proceed to chain 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed to chain up 2 more, because I'm going to be working on 2 stitches, but I'm not going to count those 2 in the extra count on the side. So they're just going to stay on the side. And then I'm going to work a round of double crochet just across. This would be your row of front post double crochet. That would go across the bottom of the hat. And another important thing is when you're spacing the ear flaps on the hat, make sure that you also use stitch markers for that as well. Or, like I said earlier, you can substitute for scrap pieces of yarn. So I'm going to finish up my double crochets here. And then if I return back to an ear flap, you can see how it's all on one side. So that's the effect that we're going to have to achieve. So our next row is going to be chaining up 2. And it starts with a back post double crochet around the first stitch. And then the next stitch is also going to be a back post double crochet. And it's a back post double crochet, one in each stitch all the way across. And when you flip your work to the wrong side and then work your back post double crochet, it's the same thing because you're pulling the post to the front side and then working the double crochet. So the ridge ends up on the wrong side of the work. And this also shortens down the double crochet, and it's just kind of like layering upon layering that double crochet, making it like denser and denser. So it's great for those winter projects without making it overly bulky, which is something you also want to avoid with hats and apparel. That's what our row looks like. So then our next row is the row that I really need to be showing you. So we start off with a front post double crochet into the first stitch. And then into the next stitch, we also place a front post double crochet. And in total, we just have to place front post double crochets in the first 7 stitches. And then you skip the next stitch right here. Just completely skip over it. That's the way you're going to be decreasing in these ear flaps. And then continue the front post double crochet to the other side. And then chain 2, turn your work, and row 4 is just back post double crocheting all the way back across. It's just a repeat of row 2. And the main reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you what effect it creates and how it does not impact and create like holes in your fabric or any worries of that sort. And look at that, we changed the red. And it's the bright version of the red too. And so that's what it looks like when you decrease. It just naturally wants to form in on its own and just swap out. It just goes right in like so. And that's the whole part about the hat itself, the ear flap, and all there is left is the actual braid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the yarn here. I'm going to fasten this off. And then just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to cut some long strands of the yarn. About the same length. Preferably, you can wrap it around whatever you'd like, a notebook, a book, or anything of that sort. And I like to mix different colors together to get a nice different variety, but in this case, I'm just going to use the red. Then when you're done, you take each of the yarns and you would proceed to knot each of them into a stitch along the fringe, just like fringe. And then, of course, make sure that they even out. So grab both ends, pull it down to the center. And now let's say these are my 3 strands. And of course, I would actually have bigger strands at the time. But these are the strands I'm going to use to show you because they're good for using an up-close camera so that you can see each of them. Because if I had several different strands, it would be much harder for you to see where each strand is going. So you need to take the outside strands to the inside. So I'm going to start by taking this left outside strand over the middle strand, and then I'll alternate by taking this right strand to the middle. And then I'll push everything up. And then I'll take this left outside strand to the middle, and then take the right strand to the middle. And then the left strand to the middle, and then the right strand to the middle. The left strand, then the right strand. And then the left strand, and then the right strand. And you can see this creates that braided effect that you want to achieve. So if I set this aside, you can see we've gone over all the different aspects of our hat. We've went over how to start the crown, we've gone over the ear flaps, and now we've gone over this braided section as well, which of course you'll use several different strands and colors, and then you'll tie it off when you're done. And that concludes everything you need to know, really, really in depth, and I hope that you'll really enjoy making this hat. And one more thing, when you're weaving in your ends, don't try to go like around the front post double crochets. Always go through the base and into another front post double crochet, or just use the regular double crochets next to it and then go back over, skipping one stitch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this in-depth crochet show and tell. Now that you've seen what a gorgeous fabric all these combinations of stitches create, the endless colorway options with the Karen cakes or whatever yarn you're gonna choose, make sure to check out the free written pattern, which I'll have linked to down below in the description box. And while you're down there, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Jonah's Hands, and check out my Instagram page, Jonah Hands. Crochet away, friends.